process. I think that it's recording. Savannah, did you get a little notification about it recording?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Great. Cool. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for joining us. Happy Friday. Beautiful Friday. Not super frigid like last week. Nice. This is what we live in Florida for. So just to confirm, Savannah, you can see my screen still?
Yes.
Okay,
Like it's
awesome.
showing the first slide.
Okay, great. So I kind of just went through this. We'll go through it again for anyone that hopped on. So we are recording this video that's going to be sent out to anybody who wasn't able to make the live session. If you can keep yourself muted and your video turned off, that will help us with bandwidth. That'll help us with distractions. As the presentation goes on, if you have any questions that pop into your mind, go ahead and put them in the chat, and then hopefully we'll answer them throughout the presentation. But if not, then we'll definitely circle back to them at the end. But this will help us to kind of stay on time and make sure that we get through the bulk of the information. And then, like I said, we'll answer questions at the end. So you can see a little agenda off to the side. So we got everyone logging on. Hey, John, how are you? We're asking people to mute and turn their cameras off. Perfect. And then we're going to go through kind of the big picture, like why is this work even worth it? And then Savannah's going to talk about what the actual application process looks like in the logistics. And then we'll open it up for question and answer. So here we go. All right. So why are we even invested in this work? Why does it matter? Most of you are familiar with the concept of a food system by this point, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, what is a food system? So the term food system describes the interconnected systems and processes that influence nutrition, food, health, community development, and agriculture. And I highlighted interconnected because that's kind of one of the things that makes us unique. A lot of times these networks kind of already exist, but they exist within industries versus across industries. And so what we're really hoping with this food system network with Homegrown Hillsborough is that people from different industries can all come together and we can create this interconnected network in which all of our different sectors are represented. The other thing I highlighted was the aspect of community development. So this is a community development initiative. And so our kind of main focus is on making our community better. And that is very broad, and that can be kind of interpreted in a lot of ways. Hey, Mel, I'm asking people to turn their cameras off and keep muted, so that way we can kind of keep things a little more clear. No, it's good to see you though, but thanks for joining us. So the emphasis is on community development. And so kind of the theory is that community development can lead to greater economic development. But for this, my expertise is in community development, and a lot of the work that we'll focus on is from a community development lens. So the food system includes all of the processes and infrastructure involved in feeding a population: growing, harvesting, processing, packaging, transporting, marketing, consumption, distribution, and disposal of food and food-related items. So over on the right, we have our food system sector wheel. And if you haven't seen it before, you'll see it 100,000 times. These are the 6 sectors that we talk about when we say the food system. So each of you fall into at least one of these sectors. Usually you fall into many because you are growing food and also distributing it. You are cooking food and also composting it. And so this kind of lays like the foundation of when we talk about the food system, we're talking about these sectors from these specific lenses: nutrition, health, food, community development, and agriculture. So why do we need a food system network? In theory, community development work tries to tackle really tough dynamic problems. And our kind of goal is to shoot for the stars. And so that's really exciting. It's really liberating. It gives us something to aim for. But it can also be really overwhelming. So when we close our eyes and think about 10 years in the future, we want to see, these dynamic, massive, systematic shifts, healthier communities, livelihood for farmers, reduction or elimination of food insecurity. Those are all huge issues. And so while that is very much aligned with the work we want to do, the theory is kind of easy to envision, but really hard to hold on to. It also requires assistance from all angles. And so even if you are well-positioned, well-funded, well-organized, you're still just one person. And we need lots of people to also have those same attributes in order to kind of see these big systematic dynamic changes happen. Food system networks serve as an essential organization that unite diverse stakeholders, including farmers, grocers, chefs, nonprofits, residents, and public health officials, to strengthen and reimagine local food systems. So once again, that's kind of the theory. That's like what's in our minds, why we do this, and how we'll get it done. But what does that actually look like in practice? The visioning is kind of the easy part. The doing is where it gets a little harder. And so in practice, we know that communities with robust local food systems are more resilient because they're able to adapt to change. They maintain influence over their resources and they reduce dependence on factors outside of their control. So once we have these systems set up, there are real tangible benefits that we receive from having created these networks. Food systems work to connect individuals as a pathway to other civic engagement opportunities, which multiplies their positive effects. So everybody has their own relationship with food, and therefore everybody can kind of be an expert in their own food system because they have their own relationship, versus some of these other kind of big community development building blocks, healthcare, engineering, energy. Those often you have to be an engineer. You have to know how solar works in order to contribute to it. For this, we actually don't have that. Anybody can be an expert in their own food system. So, hey, Charlie, and then I see that Georgia's joining as well. We're asking that everybody mute and turn their camera off just to kind of reduce any kind of extra noise. So really glad that you could join though, and welcome. So the evidence is on our side for why these are worthy investments. So I found this op-ed that I thought fit really well. A more resilient food system starts at the community level, and that is us, right? That is us here. We all live in Hillsborough County. We all are invested in the future of this county, of this city, because we live here. This is our community. I can run into you guys on the streets. I see you guys out and about. This is our community where we have this commonality amongst us. So high functioning networks like food policy councils require time and effort, but if we want systematic change, we can't afford not to invest in them. And so just as a quick note, I do want to take the moment to say that Homegrown Hillsborough is not a food policy council. However, it is a very similar model. And so kind of for our purposes, we can swap that. When you see Food Policy Council, you can kind of take out that and put in Homegrown Hillsborough. But the big distinction between food policy councils and what we do is that policy councils advance policy. Homegrown Hillsborough is going to be rooted in programming. So while we are out building our goals and objectives and projects and pillars, that's going to materialize as projects and programs versus policy. I have said it before and I'll say it again. I would support one of the kind of parallel outputs of this being that somebody takes the lead on a policy council, but the kind of the root and the basis and the direction of Homegrown Hillsborough is not policy related. However, most communities do have food policy councils, so you will see that verbiage in a lot of these kind of network discussions, which is why it's here. It does kind of fit what we're doing, but just to once again clarify that we are not a policy council, we are rooted in programming. So in this article, I took out a few quotes that I thought were really relevant. So one of the best ways to impact the food system for better is to invest in food system networks at the community, state, and regional level. And I obviously very much believe in that. That's what you do too. That's why we're here. And you can also see this happening with parallel networks. So for those of you that are tuned into the Florida Organic Growers Network, that's a statewide network. There is, I think, some kind of networks at like the Southeast regional level. And then for us, I think when we think about regional, we think about Tampa Bay. So for me and my purposes, I work for Hillsborough County Extension, so I serve Hillsborough County residents and businesses. But B, I also think it's really wise for us as a county to have a firm grasp on what our specific goals and objectives and visions look like before we kind of start this regional collaboration. And so I would love, similar to a food policy council, maybe being kind of one of the parallel outputs, to also see more regional food system as the development as a parallel output. But for me and my scope, I look at the parameters of Hillsborough County and I say, great, there's so much work to do here. Our goals and objectives are going to be a little different than Pinellas. They're going to be a little different than Manatee. There's definitely overlap, but I would love to see the regional counties also adopt a similar strategy as what we are doing here. So that way, when we do have the opportunity to do more regional development, we can all come to the table with more kind of concise direction from our members to make sure that once we're collaborating at this regional level, we're also continuing to serve our boots on the ground organizations. So all of that is to say is that networks at all levels are really important, and Homegrown Hillsborough is trying to kind of do our part by creating this county community level network. Be it public, private, or nonprofit work, there are frequently intersectional opportunities for collaboration and information sharing within trade groups or professional associations, which can benefit everybody. And so this is to kind of say that it looks different places throughout. We have the benefit of having a really robust public-private partnership. And so Homegrown Hillsborough is supported and administrated through UFIFAS Hillsborough County Extension, which is a department of our county government, but we partner with well-built cities as a way to implement the program. And so we have this fantastic public-private partnership, which has served us well, and I think is a really good model. And so that's, we have kind of this mix, and I'm really happy that with the progress we've had and with the vision that we have for the future. But ultimately, what this is saying is that there's opportunities everywhere. I think that we see them all the time. There's like small little community grants or opportunities to pitch your idea, or collaborations between the local hospital and community-based organizations. And sometimes it's you had to be there kind of thing, where if you're not in the room when that announcement happens, then you might miss it. And what we want to do is create this network where we can share that information and make sure that we're taking advantage of all these opportunities, no matter how big or small they are. And having strong networks allow us to do that. And then this one I thought was a really great segue, which is that these networks hold regular meetings and events that offer opportunities for relationship building, coalition development, and generate conversation that can lead to new thinking in the field. Yet few opportunities exist to engage in this important work across sectors. And so in the last few years, we've been doing a lot of listening to you all and to other food system stakeholders, and we have overwhelmingly heard, I wish there was a place for all of us to connect. And that's what we're building here. And so when we are able to connect, even though in the moment you think like attending a happy hour at Meacham Urban Farm might not be an immediate return to your vision or organization or business. Those kind of micro interactions that we have with each other better prepare us for when those opportunities do come. So just familiarizing ourselves, knowing each other's names and faces, and kind of the work you like to do and how you do work and who your audience is, having kind of being ready and knowing all of that will help us that when a big opportunity does come, that we're able to quickly organize and assemble and kind of know who does what and how they do it and when they'll do it, and to the extent they'll do it, and we'll be able to activate quicker. So that's what these networks are. They do take regular meetings and events, which of course require that people show up to those things. So it can kind of seem, like I said, like, why this little meeting, if I skip it once, it's fine, and it is. But in the long term, if that's happening too much, then we're ultimately not creating this network of collaboration and partnership. So, participation is essential. This was an article that I found, that I thought just really kind of very clearly outlined kind of why we do this work. So this is best practices for community food system projects. And I can share the entire article. It's honestly just a few pages, but they list 4 different components for success in your community food system projects. And right out of the gate, you can see that first one is collaborate with strong leaders and partners who are in it for the right reasons and committed for the long term. And so with Homegrown Hillsborough, we are beginning to kind of shift our work into these working group priorities, into this leadership development. So we'll talk a little bit about what leadership means in just a second, but I'll give you, spoiler alert, leadership is all of us. So leadership is just showing up and taking an extra kind of second of your day to contribute to something that is bigger than you. And so we want everyone to know and to feel comfortable with the concept that they are a leader and they have the opportunity to lead, and that we will provide them with as much leadership development and support as we can in order for leaders to lead. And so we need to have a bench full of leaders. We need to have it so that everybody sees themselves as a leader and is able to pick up the baton and take it on when it is their time or their turn. And so that's the first kind of component of a successful community food system project, is to have so many leaders that you're all collaborating and partnering amongst each other. The second is to build initiatives that fit the community. So once again, that's kind of that little diatribe that I wanted about regional development. We need to know what is specific to not only our county, but even our neighborhood. So the neighborhoods of East Tampa and South Tampa look and feel and act and work in very different ways. And the initiatives that we build for those 2 different communities, while we have that common thread of being located in Hillsborough County, and there are a lot of commonalities between them, there are differences. And grassroots development is almost always the most effective in the long term. And it generates the most kind of like authentic and resilient results. And so we need leaders from all of these communities in order to build initiatives that fit. We need to look for inspiration in successful examples. And I think that this is going to be kind of one of the shining points of the working groups, which is that the working groups are going to be deliberate time for us to learn together. And so I don't know about you guys, but many times in my life, including right now, I open all these tabs for these articles I'm going to read later, or I pick up all of these books for things I'm going to do later, and that later never comes. And it's just because you're shuffling around. Unless you really get deliberate about it, it's easy to have time pass, and then sure enough, you have a stack of books and 100 tabs open on your computer. And so these working groups are going to be time for this kind of deliberate learning together. So we'll say, okay, we want to build a food hub. Great. me and Savannah and Dahlia are going to go find resources on what a best example of inspiration and successful examples look like. And then we're going to give it to you all. And in between now and the next month, we hope that you will find that time to read it and discuss it. So that way we can say, hey, based on this article right here, people that have done the work, people that have been successful in the work, it seems like we need to engage a real estate developer in order to help us build this food hub, or that this grant is a really good opportunity for us. And so this is just going to create some intentionality around this. So that way we can kind of shorten our pathway to success. Lots of people have done this work before. There's so many examples of successful initiatives, and we should be doing everything we can to borrow from them. And then lastly, develop plans using primary and secondary data. And so that's kind of a lot of what Homegrown Hillsborough has been doing these last few years, is collecting primary data, which is just your input, your thoughts. And then secondary data being things like collaborating with the Department of Health to see what type of diet-related diseases are in these neighborhoods. We might have our perceptions about them, but the data might say something different, and we do want to be evidence-based. So this, like I said, this article I thought was really easy and thorough to read, and they list examples of successful community food projects, but the first one is strong leaders, and so that's kind of what we're trying to do here. And so all of that kind of background and theory, big picture stuff, like what is Homegrown Hillsborough? So Homegrown Hillsborough is a network of community members with a mission to grow a strong food system. That is very broad on purpose. That can mean so many things to all of us. And we kind of need to take a step in and say, exactly what does that mean? And so we have these values. The values are stewardship, community well-being, choice, education, and accessibility. And then our vision is an integrated food system that is diverse, reliable, and creates opportunity for active participation. And so these can kind of help us triangulate the work that we do, and basically use it as a checklist to say, awesome, so there is this opportunity to partner with somebody. Okay, does it help us grow a strong food system? Does it represent our values? Will it help us accomplish our vision? And hopefully there's a lot of yeses there, and we say, great, this is a great opportunity for us to partner. But if not, then that might just be a way for us to say, okay, so this isn't the best fit, and so we're going to keep looking for the best fit. So this can kind of be our guiding North Star. And then how did we get here? Many of you have been here from the beginning, and that makes me very happy, makes my heart warm. It also kind of helps me remember that this work is something that you care about and that it's important to do. But basically back in 2023, we started with this phase one, which was community engagement. And we had a small team of program ambassadors who reached out to people like yourselves, and we conducted interviews. And those interviews were basically like, what are your food system dreams and how would you get them done and what would you need? And so from those interviews, that is where we got to hear that people want a place for collaboration. We had some outreach events, and then we started building this online platform. I'm realizing that I'm taking a lot of time, so I'm going to try to speed up. Phase two, a lot of you were there for that. We had these monthly summits, and did kind of just more of that in-person engagement, really started having that partnership development. And then we ended last year, phase two, by doing these working group priorities. And so now we're in the process of building those working groups. And so that's what is on the horizon for us. So real quick, our team, you have me, I'm the Food System Program Coordinator. I work for UF-IFAS Extension, Hillsborough County. We have Dahlia Bumbaka, who's the Director of Development and Programming at Well-Built Cities. That is that nonprofit partner that I mentioned. And then we have Savannah, who is the Homegrown Hillsborough Specialist and will kind of work with both me and Dahlia to see this vision of these working groups through. And so we will be very familiar faces to you, and we hope that you'll come to us with any questions you have, and we'll be able to relieve that. But this is our team. relatively small, but I would say mighty. Um, and what is the team here to do? We are here to serve. We want to serve you. And so we've had the ability to kind of like give direction in the last few years, but at this point, we really want to take a step back and just serve the hardworking organizations and groups that are doing the food system work. And so we want to take direction. We want to assist in the implementation of this coordinated work. We want to leverage resources to expand our impact. We want to create and refine systems to streamline our efficiency, and we want to maintain these frameworks to help keep us accountable and intentional. And I do have this quick little image of the collective impact model. The collective impact model is another one of those frameworks that Homegrown Hillsborough will be implementing to once again keep us accountable and intentional, to use as a checklist to make sure that the work that we're doing makes sense. And you can see that one of the things is a backbone coordinating organization, and that's what we are here to do. We're here to serve, and we're here to make sure that these other four components are being maintained. And so why do we need food system leaders? We need you to give us directions. We need someone to serve. We need somebody to say, oh, we have to pick between this and that. Well, as the leader, I'm going to make this decision and go forward, and we can implement that. Obviously, with like democratic functions kind of, ingrained through our process. But ultimately, we need leaders to give us direction. We need to build local capacity, and through that, we can reduce reliance on outside technical experts. So that's things like outside consultants that have to travel here and learn about our geography and learn about our demographics and learn about our community in order to give us a feasibility study. Well, what if we just invested in learning how to do that ourselves? What if we found somebody who can do that locally? We live in a giant county with a lot of people, and I feel very confident that we have everything we need already here. It's just a matter of finding them and engaging them and recruiting them to be part of our work. Leaders help ensure the long-term availability of this work, and that it's not dependent on one person or one entity. So, asking ourselves basically, if Homegrown Hillsborough were to fall apart, would there be somebody who could pick it up? And I hope the answer is yes. But by building a bench of leaders, we'll have people that will increase the chances of that. And then lastly, I think one of the most important things is to remind everybody that leadership does not require a secret ingredient. It does not require you to have a certain look or stance or posture or articulation or reading level or any of that. Everybody can be a leader. All it takes is just commitment to want to continue to serve. And on that note, one of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Martin Luther King that said, "Everybody can be great because anybody can serve." You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. And those, I think, are pretty low-hanging fruits and low barriers to entry. I think that we all have hearts full of grace and we all are generated by love. And so therefore, we can all be leaders, and everybody can be great because everybody can serve. And then lastly, just to kind of like really kind of hone it home is I like to talk about something called the leadership carousel, which is I think a lot of people are often afraid of leadership and taking on leadership because they're afraid that once they get on, they'll never be able to get off, and that they will become the default person, and then they'll have this guilt that if they step back, things will fall apart. And so we should all take our turn on the leadership carousel. The way that we have that outlined here is these 2-year terms for leadership, but we have it that way so people know that there is an end date. It's a commitment, and there is some flexibility, but we do want you to know that just because you signed up today doesn't mean you're committed for 10 years. If you want to, great, but part of the responsibility is succession planning. So while you're writing the leadership carousel, you should be looking to see who's on the sidelines looking in, who's intrigued by this, and we should be working to recruit them and to build them up and to make them confident to know that they can take their turn next, and that this is going to keep going round and round as long as we have writers. And so, leadership, when you are a good leader, you become a better follower or participant. And when you are a follower that becomes a leader, those things are, reciprocal. And so we can all be leaders because anybody can serve. And that will in return make us better participants and better people to be organized and activated. So before we talk about the logistics with Savannah, real broad, the short-term goals of these working groups are to create goals and objectives for our working group priorities. So we have narrowed down to these 3 priorities: food production, food access, and economic development. But now we need to get specific about that. So economic development, is that outreach to the farmers market, or is that building a food hub? Because those are 2 different things. And so these working groups will help kind of determine that. We need to recruit network members to participate. So even if you're not one of these 5 working group leaders, these meetings are open to everybody, and they will be collaborative, and they will have a place for you to come and contribute and to basically kind of campaign to these leaders to say, hey, for food production, my civic association would really like to see this as part of the work that we do, and to kind of give that direction. We will be awarding community investments. And so we, are really fortunate to have some dollars kind of tied to all of this. And so we want to see those direct investments into the work that you guys do. And we want to start creating more of this kind of robust investment opportunity. And then we need people that can represent Homegrown Hillsborough to the greater county. So, I can't be everywhere at once, but all 21 of us can be a lot of places at once. And so if we all kind of have this shared network amongst us, then we can continue to build and recruit people and bring them in. In the long term, I think that we should envision, what does it look like to have mega dollars invested in this stuff? And this is, to the tune of $10 million, $20 million, things like that. If we do want to build a food hub, that's going to cost many millions of dollars. That's a way different scale than building a community garden. And so things like federal funds, endowments possibly, and even working with local governments to leverage bonds and loans. These types of financing structures already exist, but we need to be organized, and we need to have an ask ready for them. I'd like to help create a career path for food system work. So many of us are either volunteers or we're kind of living on the dollars we get as we go, and that ultimately is not sustainable in the long term. We should be striving for career level professional positions that include things like benefits and paid time off and healthcare, as a way to make sure that this isn't just a flash in the pan, but this is actually long-term, authentic community development work. And then lastly, we want to benefit from our work. We want to see a reduction in childhood obesity. We want to see, land being saved for future farmers. We want to see local food being served at restaurants. We want to dream all these things and then live in this dream. And we can do that, but that is going to take some long-term work. And so that's the big vision. I hope that I haven't scared you and that I've excited you. And Savannah is going to talk about the application process.
All right. Thanks, Monica. So first, I'm just going to talk about what our 3 working group topics are. And these were selected through the interviews, as Monica stated earlier. We had 56 interviews, and we asked our members to kind of rank the topics that they were looking at. So our top 3, number 1 would be food production. And some of the suggested topics for that were new and beginning farmer training. That would include like training, business development, land acquisition, apprenticeship, and career development for farmers. That would also include urban agriculture, which would increase high yield urban food producers. So that would be things like expanding backyard production, urban farms, things like urban animal husbandry, including chickens, beekeeping, and controlled climate productions, like in hydroponics. Things like, if you're familiar with Brick Street Farm in St. Pete, they're an awesome like indoor hydroponic system. That also includes community gardens. So that would be working with our existing garden efforts to support and expand community gardens. Then our next topic is food access, and that would include things like healthy neighborhood stores that would work with existing convenience stores in low-income, low-access areas to introduce and support healthier food options to positively impact their health outcomes. That would also include mobile markets that would create points of food access that are mobile so that, we don't necessarily have to invest in a brand new grocery store in an area, but just bringing food into more into pockets of areas. Would also include grocery store development. That's a separate topic. Food pantries, and that would work with existing food pantries to promote and complement their existing services. And then finally, food literacy, which would work with community partners to increase literacy rates in Hillsborough County, which that would include things like cooking classes, food demos, nutrition education, and increasing individuals' comfort with fresh fruits and vegetables. And our last working group topic is economic development, and some suggested focus areas would include food hubs, which would be things like researching and developing plans such as business models, funding streams, workforce needs, architecture designs, and potential sites for aggregation and distribution centers that sell locally grown and produced products to retail wholesale markets. That would also include farmers markets. We would work with established farmers markets to promote, expand, and complement existing services. Food entrepreneurship, which would create programming that supports new food entrepreneurship and enterprising and selling value-added products to commercial and retail markets. Food financing, which is researching strategies and coordinating with appropriate partners and agencies to leverage local, state, or federal financing opportunities to support major investments, like Monica was just talking about, into food system projects. And emerging professionals, so creating internship and apprentice programs to support professional development within the local food system. So now to talk about how to actually access the application. If you haven't already looked, are you subscribed to our newsletter? So that would have given you a link to the application there and a little bit of background. Are you on our online platform, which is Mobilize? And these are some like easy to type in links that you can use to find the application, our link tree, and accessing the platform. You can also scan this QR code and that'll give you our link tree, which will have all the links that you need. So if anyone had any issues accessing the application, this should take you right to it. All right, and we give you some dates for the application process. We opened it on January 24th. It's going to close on February 14th, so that's like 2 weeks from now. And applicants will be notified a week after it closes, so February 21st. And we are planning to have a leadership retreat on Wednesday, March 12th and Thursday, March 13th. So if you are interested in doing this, please mark off those days now so that you'll be available. And then our working groups will begin in April. We don't know the exact date yet. So we also want to just walk you through the application just to show you if you have any questions. I'll kind of walk through the questions. It gives you a little bit of background about.
Can you see it? Sorry, is that on the screen? Okay, thanks.
Yes, I can see it, yeah. So it gives a little bit of background about the working groups, tells you about the webinar that's happening right now. And if you want to scroll down, the first thing we ask you to do is send your resume to me. So please do that first thing when you open the application. We're looking for your name, your phone number, email address, basically anything to contact you so we know who you are when you're applying. If you have an affiliated organization, if you don't have an affiliated organization, you can just say NA. And then if you want to select which working group you want to be on, we also have a link to the descriptions of the working groups, which I kind of basically just read through. And just make sure you're looking at the ones that we selected. So only food production, food access, and economic development. So those are all in there with a little bit more details if you're not sure which one you want to be on. We are only kind of letting you select one at the moment. And then we'll ask if you are applying for co-chair or just a member at large. They're all considered leadership, but the co-chairs are the paid leaders in the group. There'll be 2 co-chairs, 3 members at large. And then we're asking for kind of like a little cover letter, 300 words or less, as to why you'd be a good fit for this role. It's pretty straightforward. Just tell us about yourself and why you'd be a good fit. And then we're asking if you're available for the leadership retreat. It is not disqualifying if you can't make it, but like I said, we really want you to mark it off if you have it available now. And if you're not selected to be a co-chair, would you still want to be a member at large? And that's an important question of, you know, um, and then we'll ask you if you're planning to attend the webinar so that we could probably take away after today. And then we're asking if you're available on Thursdays starting in April. And if it comes down to it, we may have to change the day. So that's why we are asking also which days you're available, either morning, afternoon, so that we can make something work for everyone, because it's really important to us that everyone can be there. And then finally, we're just doubling back to ask if you sent your resume so that to remind you, if you have not sent it and you don't send it by the deadline, we will not be able to consider your application. So that was just a reminder at the end. If you check done and we're like, I'll do it later, we're reminding you one more time. And any additional questions, you can always email me. So that was the walkthrough of the application. And then just to talk a little bit about the leadership retreat that I mentioned, as I said, it's going to be on March 12th and 13th, which is a Wednesday and Thursday. It'll be an all-day retreat, so 9 a.m., 4 p.m. We will provide lunch for everyone in attendance. We do not have a location yet. We're looking somewhere in Hillsborough County. Throughout the retreat, we're going to do things like take headshots for you, get information for business cards. We'll do leadership type analysis and kind of talk through how we can work together and how different leadership types work together. We'll also do team building stuff, talk about collective impact and social capital, talk about community development, and some facilitation to help you, because you will be facilitating a working group. So a lot of leadership building over those 2 days. It'll be pretty jam-packed. And again, we want you to apply before February 14th. So here is that QR code if you want to go to our link tree. These are the short, or I wouldn't call them short necessarily, but easier to remember URLs, everything.homegrownhillsborough.com. So please apply. And if you have any questions, now is your time. I kind of blew through that a little bit. I forget that I talk fast sometimes. So
Well, I
I
forget that
don't
I
see any
talk
questions in
too
the chat
much.
yet.
So so together
Good mix.
we can commit to our promise for an hour. So yeah, at this point we want to open it up for questions and see what we can do to encourage you and to kind of soothe over maybe any worries that you have. You can always reach out to Savannah for questions, and then if she doesn't have the answer, she'll reach out to me. But yeah, and then just on the screen, you do see we're trying to make it a little easier to access some of our resources. So working groups with an S, .homegrownhillsborough.com will take you right to the application. Connect.homegrownhillsborough.com will take you to our link tree, which has all of these links. And then platform.homegrownhillsborough.com will take you to the platform. If you're not already signed up, you can go ahead and register there. I get I have to do a preview on my end, and then you'll be part of the platform. So all of this is also kind of available in the newsletter, which you should also be signed up for. So cool. Well, let's open the floor. I'm going to keep this up so that way you guys can scan it and use it and write it down and open these in tabs in your computer right now. And we'll take questions for the next 13 minutes.
Hi, it's Charlie Adams. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah. Great. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, so I was just introduced to Homegrown just recently by someone from the Marjorie magazine. And so one of my question is, I seen that you all stated that you work with established farmers markets. Well, what I'm trying to figure out exactly what established mean, because uh, I have a nonprofit in the I'm director of a nonprofit called Kids on the River, and one of our initiatives is addressing food deficit at the Sulphur Spring. I'm in the Sulphur Springs community, so we'll be hosting. I just received authorization from the city of Tampa to host at our Sulphur Springs pool area. There's a botanical park along the river. So it'll be the Springs Market, working with the city of Tampa as well. And we're at the point of having our expenses and everything developed. It took maybe like 12 weeks to do so. So is a farmer's market that's really at this infancy stage is something you will you will work with, or will we have to be established up and running in order to build that relationship?
Yeah, no, and so this is actually, I would love to kind of invite you, actually, we're gonna start doing these membership opportunities for new members like yourself to introduce yourself to our wider network. So I mentioned this platform, and this platform is going to be a great place for you to connect. We have over 250 members on it. All of them are invested in food system work. I can think of a few people on this call that also do food system work in the Sulphur Springs area. So to answer your question immediately, no, established just means that like you have a table and you've tried to sell farmers market stuff somewhere
Mhm.
once before. We do have a relationship with Tampa Bay Markets, which administers a lot of the bigger markets in the area. So we've done like events and stuff with them. But no, I think we'd love to talk about what partnership could look like with Kids on the River and any other kind of opportunities, and would love to bring you in further into the network. So for more of the specifics, we should set up a time to talk, and then I can help arrange a time for you to kind of meet our greater audience. But really glad that you're here today, and would definitely love to hear more about this because I think that's a big need.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Of course, yeah.
What I
We also had a, sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
So are you gonna send me an email? Do you have an email where I can
Yeah, if you registered, then I'll have your email. So I'll go ahead and send you an email with a link, and we can
click
schedule a
on the
meeting
link?
from there.
Perfect.
Great.
We also had a question in the chat that I just wanted to clarify. The retreat is not overnight. It is 2 consecutive days, 9 to 4 p.m. So not overnight. Don't worry.
I do have a question.
Mhm.
This is Desiree. So, question that I have is, so with the working groups, and you had mentioned collaborations and grants and things like that. So, if we are a part of an established group, that is kind of like branching off, kind of similar to the gentleman just mentioned about the Sulphur Springs area, but we're not a nonprofit. We're just kind of individually starting farms, beginning farmers and things like that. We're actually just doing it out of our homes, right? So we're starting it, picking it up. We just started working with USDA and things like that. So, I mean, literally getting things in the ground and getting things working. Are there going to be opportunities as well for more collaborations? Because we may not individually qualify for some of these grants, but collectively, we could, to
Mhm.
solve some of the issues that, that was mentioned earlier, because Hillsborough County is huge. I mean, it's huge. I live in rural Hillsborough County, and I mean, it just out there alone is huge.
Mhm.
So collectively coming together to get some of those dollars, to be able to allocate that, is that something, is that what you meant when you said that? I guess is what I'm trying to.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we meant. And so a lot of these bigger funding sources with like federal grants, and we'll see what the direction of these federal grants look like. But let's just assume that that these grants keep coming. Then a lot of them require partnership. So an independent nonprofit usually has to partner with other entities in order to even be eligible. And so what we're trying to do is to basically get those partnerships kind of queued up. So that way, when these $250,000, $1 million investment opportunities, grants come around, that we already have everybody kind of queued up and ready to know what role they'll play, what they'll do, how much it'll cost, and to submit for these bigger dollars. So like an emerging nonprofit like yourself would probably benefit from snugging up and working closely with a more established nonprofit, business, health department. I think that everybody's kind of interested in it, but once again, clarifying those different roles. In addition to working and partnering on projects, we also do have some Homegrown Hillsborough initiatives kind of around investing in our organizations. So we are trying to work out, and no promises, but if we get everything that we ask for, then we'll have some funds to help with new nonprofits get a little more established, or new businesses, through like professional services. Like, sometimes navigating who to file to what can be really hard, or sometimes your nonprofit has to undergo an audit to qualify for a grant. And so we do have some resources that we're trying to direct specifically to that, to once again get us all ready to be at that starting line. So when these opportunities come our way, we can take off running. So I think, to answer your question, like, yes. But that being said, we work as a group. And so if I imagine there's other groups in a similar position as you, and so that's probably a need that many feel. But if it's a need that only you feel, then we'd work with you kind of more closely one-on-one, versus it being maybe like a whole priority of a working group. It would be
Okay.
just something that we do kind of one-on-one, which once again is like what we're here for. But if there's multiple people that feel this way, which I believe there are, because there are a lot of new nonprofits and new initiatives that are popping up, then we would kind of collectively, maybe we try to have an expert come and talk to us and walk us through this process. Maybe we have some kind of training that we can all go through. So yeah, it's kind of all left to be seen.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, I think it just helps to better prepare us as we're trying to bring the community in, because like I said, we're starting at our house. I mean, you can garden and, grow fresh fruits and vegetables right at your home. So, just having that support and being able to do that is awesome. So thank you.
Great, my pleasure. Yeah. Any other questions? We only have a few more minutes left about like the logistics, or what it looks like to be one of these working group leaders, or just a member participating in these meetings.
Monica, can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is
Is
Nicole.
there,
Oh, sorry. Okay, Magnolia, I hear you, and I think I hear somebody else. So Magnolia, why don't you go first, and then whoever else can go after you.
sure.
Cool.
So real quick, is there any specifics that you guys are looking for when choosing co-chairs and members at large? Is there anything specific in the background that you're looking for in the resume?
That's a good question. And right now I would say no. This is also my first time doing this. So we're kind of all learning together. But availability, I think, is huge. And like I said, our uh, tasks for leaders are basically people that just want to commit. So you don't have to have a college degree. Your verb and subject don't have to match, right? Like, it's just a willingness to be committed to this project in the long term. But no, I would say, if it's shoot for the stars, which is why we do ask, like, if for some reason you are not selected as the co-chair, would you still be interested in just general membership? But I can't think of anything. I don't know if Savannah or Dahlia have anything to say about that.
I
would
think
just
there's
reemphasize-
commitment.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, ultimately, we need people to help organize and lead these groups. The work doesn't get done if we continue to just have general conversations about our hopes and dreams. So somebody that has or shows an intention to, pushing groups towards action items, and, committing to our collective impact model of shared measurement and differentiated activities, right? And so really fosters that kind of environment. So any kind of background or experience or willingness that kind of speaks to that drive to help organize along these food systems issues, I think would be a compelling case. I also want to add that it's important to remember that while if you are not selected for a co-chair position, there will still be a bucket of funds that will be utilized for continued education for other members in the leadership team. And that's really important. Again, if you have goals for, continuing to learn from regional and national and other models for the work that we're doing, and want to attend those conferences or webinars or things of that nature, there is still an opportunity, whether you're a co-chair or not. But it's, again, that being active within the group that will make that will qualify you for those funding.
Great, thank you. And then I think Natalie, Nicole was.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, Nicole. Hey.
Hey there. I just have a question regarding the co-chair positions available, as well as for myself, obviously, if I'm also a director of a nonprofit and fundraising as an entity ourselves, would that be considered some type of conflict of interest in going out for like a co-chair position to also, you know, facilitate raising funds for Homegrown Hillsborough?
No, and so that is something that we're gonna kind of explore and flesh out and develop policies around, but no. So, and I'll give everybody a kind of a sneak peek. I know we're getting close to time, but I'm about to announce partnership points, which is gonna be kind of a guiding rubric on our grant allocations. So basically, a partnership point is your interaction with the network and your commitment through being available and showing up. And so partnership points are going to be awarded for people that like if you came to the summits last year, you actually already have a handful. And then if you tune into different lunch and learns, or like Mel posted some events on the platform, if you attend an event that was posted on the platform, you'll get a point as well. And these partnership points will influence your score for these grants. So being a working group leader actually gets you partnership points. And so that, and obviously that is kind of because you show up. And so you're a big part of this. And we're working and researching with other food system networks on how they kind of like do these kind of conflict of interest, but ultimately, like to me, and I think to us, you know, if you're committed and you're showing up and you have a clear direction, you should be able to benefit from that. And I think, you know, ideally having this working group to hold us all accountable will make it so that like one person isn't running away with the whole bucket of money. But at the end of the day, you know, in theory, these will all be collaborative projects that will all be kind of working in step by step. So no, we encourage it, in fact, because that will benefit you in the long run.
Thank you.
Of course. And I do see it's past 1 o'clock. Sorry that I talked so much. Thank you for attending. If you have any more questions, reach out to me or Savannah or Dahlia. And we really look forward to seeing your applications. Not that hard, so go ahead and get them in, and we'll see from there. But we got a lot of work to do, and we need your help. So I hope that you will take this opportunity to be a leader.